If we could have this is a meeting of the Economic Development Subcommittee of the Lowell City Council. If we have the clerk call the roll, please.
Chairman Martin,
Here.
Council Kennedy,
Here.
Council Leahy,
Here.
Council Laurie,
Here.
4 present.
Okay, we're here on a motion actually that I filed after the recent presentation at the Lowell Plan annual breakfast. Thought there was some good information that the city shared there, and not every councilor nor every member of the public was able to attend. And I thought it was important that we hear that, as well as sort of a general update about economic development activity in the city. So that's the purpose of my motion and the meeting. I don't know if any of the members have anything to add, or if not, I will recognize the city manager. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the subcommittee. I'm going to turn this quickly over to Adam, whose department really coordinates our economic development activity. And I think, as you pointed out at the presentation that was made at the Lowell Plan breakfast, it was a very positive report, because I think that the news regarding economic development in the city is a very positive story. I think that we've made important strides during a very difficult economic period in terms of people working in the city, investments being made in the city, and projects in the pipeline that are going to continue to contribute to the overall condition of the city, benefiting us in so many different ways. I really think that in terms of looking at the condition of the city overall, a lot of attention is paid to the financial condition that we're in, the finances. But I think that what has been somewhat lost in that is just how well we're doing, particularly compared to other communities. I had an opportunity to be driving through another community just the other day, and for some reason it just sort of jumped out at me, not for any particular reason, certainly not to tell the story here tonight, but it was amazing to me as I drove through, looking on a major roadway, looking at the number of for lease signs and space available signs within the commercial buildings in a community, a nearby community that people look at as being doing fairly well. Here in the city, as you'll see, much of our commercial space is filled up, and we continue to work with a number of businesses that are interested in locating and expanding here in the city. So I'm going to turn it over to Adam, and he'll walk you through his report, and then we have some other information there that will show you some of what we're doing in terms of our marketing, particularly as it relates to business development in the city, which I think you'll be very impressed with.
Well, thank you, and good evening, everybody. It's a sort of pleasure to be able to give this presentation again, because frankly, I think, as the manager said, it's always kind of nice to deliver good news. It makes for a better presentation. This was a presentation that was put together and presented first at the annual breakfast of the Lowell Plan toward the end of September, about a month ago. And the focus really, first off, is to outline and understand what the city's economic development strategy has been for the past 10 to 15 years, and then talk a little bit about what some of the results of that effort in recent years have been. First off, there's a sort of general understanding or assumption, which is not entirely accurate, that the purpose and best strategy of economic development is to just sort of chase the big companies and see how many you can, throw tax breaks at them and see how many of them you can get to come to your community. And Lowell does do some of that, and we've actually had a fair amount of success bringing a number of prominent big companies into the city that have literally brought hundreds of jobs into the city. But the danger of focusing a strategy on that front is that the very companies that are most likely to be reeled in on that strategy are the ones that are inherently the most mobile and the least committed to the location that they are in or the location you are drawing them to. And as a result, they tend to be the ones that you may get them for the term of a 5 or 10 year lease and have a brief win, but then they may be just as easily persuaded to go somewhere else at the end of that lease by somebody else for all the same reasons that you were able to attract them in the first place. And a much more sustainable approach, and really what Lowell has embraced, I think with fair amount of success, is to really create the kind of welcoming climate where we can people can launch and grow businesses within the community, because the businesses that start in a place tend to be the ones that have the longest stability in that location, and that's really the real wins on an economic development front. And the other really significant, or another really significant thing is that we are in a time where there is a tremendous opportunity for cities, in that we are at a time where the sort of millennial generation that we hear so much about, that's now coming of age and making their location decisions, both for themselves and for the companies that they are starting. They are much more entrepreneurial than previous generations, has a predisposition to be more interested in urban places than any of the generations that preceded them. And that bodes extremely well for the cities that can position themselves as being the kinds of attractive authentic urban environments that are what the millennials are looking for. And what will differentiate, that clearly is working in Boston and in Cambridge and even in Somerville these days. That is very much what their economic development is grounded in right now, and they're having a lot of success with it. And many other major cities across the country are as well. The more mid-sized cities like Lowell really fall into sort of two categories: the ones that are able to create the kind of environment that's attractive to those folks, which are the ones that continue to grow, and the ones that are really not creating the kind of environment that's attractive to those folks. And those are the ones that are ultimately not benefiting from what is otherwise a positive trend for cities, and frankly, the most positive trend for cities in general in many decades. And frankly, Lowell is very well positioned on that front. I think compared to most of the gateway cities in Massachusetts, we already have an image that is more positive for attracting those folks. The key for us to continue to attract those folks, and again, this is their residential decisions, but also their business development decisions, is really that we need to continue to be viewed as the kind of attractive urban center that has the energy and the vitality and the interest and the sense of place that they're interested in. And we can't be, our image can't be shaped as us being a remote suburb of Boston. Because if we are viewed as a remote suburb of Boston, people will think of the top image on this slide, and that doesn't bode well for us. But if we are thought of as the kind of compelling urban place that's attractive for those folks, we'll be thought of more in the line of the bottom slide, which is, of the two, the one that's actually shot in Lowell. And hopefully that will continue to bode well for us. So how do we actually accomplish that? It's really about placemaking. There are a number of factors that we need to consider as we try to build the kind of place that will have the attractive effect on the people we're seeking. And many people have written a lot about this. Most prominent among them is probably Richard Florida, but many other people have studied this. And by far and away, the biggest differentiating factor for the cities that have a leg up on being identified as the compelling places for the millennial generation are the communities that have institutes of higher education that are helping to create the sense of a college town environment, as opposed to perhaps just having a college in the community or not having a college in the community at all. And I think we're fortunate that at this point we have really two institutes of higher education in Lowell that are both very interested in helping to make Lowell viewed as a college town, as opposed to just, again, a place where they happen to have campuses. And so I think we have a leg up from the beginning with the presence of those institutions. The second most important factor, I think, is really the authenticity of the place itself. And here we also, I think, have an advantage in that I think Lowell recognized the importance of preserving a sense of place to an economic development strategy really before almost anyone. I think what Lowell was able to do with the national park in the 1970s was truly pioneering and frankly revolutionary at the time. And I think now we are enjoying the benefits of that, 30-some years later, because we have taken the care over the years to actually preserve the integrity of our community. And that now is something that is very attractive to the generation that really is making the difference in terms of economic development. And we're fortunate to not have, bulldozed our authentic downtown. The second, or another key factor, is walkability and having transportation options. It has also been fairly well documented that the millennial generation, sort of the simple pat phrase that a lot of people use, is that there have been surveys that have shown that the millennial generation is more interested in spending money on cell phones than on cars, and or smartphones than on cars. And in fact, it isn't that the millennial generation doesn't use cars at all. It's just that they are driving considerably less than the previous generations have. And they want a quality of life that comes not by being beholden simply to the automobile. But they obviously need the convenience of being able to drive places, and I think in a community like Lowell that is not going to be served by the kind of public transit system you see in major central cities, we will never be a car-free community, nor should we necessarily aspire to be. But what we do need to aspire to be is a kind of community where not all activities are dependent on the car. And this is really what the Downtown Evolution Plan was really about, which was trying to figure out how we can better position our downtown to be even more walkable than it already is. And fortunately, we're starting from a point of strength in that area as well. We also benefit by having the commuter rail service and the LRTA service, and we've really, the introduction of bicycling infrastructure at the university as well as in the city is also helping to, I think, communicate to the kinds of folks that, that really will drive economic development going forward, that this is the sort of place that is welcoming of their interests and desires, and more attractive place to be. Having a compelling variety of housing options is also important. When this was something that we, in the previous master plan from 2003, we identified as the concept of being a lifetime city, of having attractive housing options for all stages of life. And one might wonder why we would be focused on housing in a discussion of economic development, and I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One, the places that people want to live become the places where they want to open businesses, if they are the person making that decision. But also, these days, the primary driver for, or resource, that businesses that might locate in a place like Massachusetts are interested in is the workforce. And they want to be where they can attract the kinds of workers that are important to the vitality and growth of their businesses. So these workers tend to be more dynamic and more flexible in their location decisions than ever before. So they are going to be attracted to the places that are attractive to them. And so having a range of housing options that can be compelling and attractive, whether it's some of our very nice historic neighborhoods and traditional neighborhoods to the lofts in the downtown. Lowell, I think, has again been doing a very good job of catering to this. And when we can attract the workforce, that will attract the companies. And we can identify many companies just in the last couple of years that have specifically come to Lowell or cited one of their major reasons for being in Lowell, and that they can recruit the kind of workforce that they're looking for from among the population that's either in Lowell or willing to come to Lowell. Whereas other places that they may have been considering or looking or have been in the past, they didn't have that level of success. So I think that's actually very important to us. It is also important that when we talk about the millennial generation looking for a kind of authentic urban place, they're not just looking for a place that has buildings and pavement and so forth. They're looking for a place that has a sense of vibrancy and energy and interest. And the arts and culture play a huge role in creating both that brand image, but also creating the reality of that. And I think, again, this is something Lowell's been at the forefront of, ahead of many of its peers in terms of attracting the arts to the city. And we have literally hundreds of working artists in and around our arts and cultural district now. And we very much have become on the map, whether it's the folk festival events or the Western Avenue studios or all of the museums that we have in the city. We are definitely recognized as an arts and cultural destination, certainly far superior to most comparably sized cities in New England or anywhere else. Sports and recreation similarly plays a role, and people are again looking for quality of life. They don't want to spend all their time commuting. They want to spend, have time to enjoy both participatory sports and recreation, but also watching professional sports and recreation. Again, this is something that Lowell has been at the forefront of. And social diversity is another area that is perhaps misunderstood because I think it has long been branded with some negative connotations around economic development, almost something one has to apologize for. And that has really changed in terms of, the generation that is making decisions now is one that actually is interested in being in places of social diversity, because there's a recognition that diverse places are the places where innovative ideas germinate. When you have a gathering or an assemblage of people who all think similarly and have very similar backgrounds and similar life experiences, it's very difficult to generate new ideas. And as the economy becomes one that is more and more about innovation and entrepreneurship, it is all about new ideas. And the places throughout history, frankly, the places that have germinated new ideas tend to be cities, and they tend to be cities that are sort of harbors of diversity. And so very, very much something that Lowell wants to celebrate and embrace. And again, it's a natural strength of the city that the variety of backgrounds that people come from and the variety of experiences that people have are what leads to the germination of new ideas in the city. And more than, again, any generation before them, the millennial generation is extremely interested in sustainability and recognizing that during their lifetimes, the consequences of the decisions that we make today in terms of the environment are going to be felt. And so they are looking for communities that have an image as progressive communities with respect to the area of environmental sustainability. And again, I think this council deserves a lot of credit for unanimously endorsing a master plan that is frankly called the Sustainable Plan, or Sustainable Lowell, and really taking a leadership role in supporting a number of very prominent initiatives that have economic benefit to the city, and whether it's the city government or the city as a whole, whether that's the energy services contract that has saved a tremendous amount of energy and money for the city, or the Better Buildings program, which is helping private building owners throughout the downtown do the same, or some of the solar projects and some of the community garden projects and other things that have been done in the city, all of which have enjoyed the support of the council and the leadership of the council. That really is positioning Lowell, and Lowell is very much being recognized as a leader in this area, and that is, again, very important for our ability to recruit economic development to the city. And I've mentioned, I think, this in a number of the discussions of a lot of the other points, but again, the economy itself is increasingly going to be about where the job growth is going to be is in the development of new companies and the rapid growth of very young companies. The big companies, the Fortune 500 companies, are generally shedding jobs if they're changing at all these days. The real job growth in the country is in innovative and entrepreneurial companies. So the more the community can create the kind of climate and ecosystem that is favorable and supportive of innovation and entrepreneurship, the better positioned we are for, again, growing businesses and growing jobs in the city going forward. And I think also something that the council deserves a lot of credit for your stewardship is really municipal governance. And another differentiating factor for Lowell from a lot of its peer communities is, frankly, the stability of the municipal government, and the fact that when one is dealing with the municipal government, your dealings are generally perceived to be on a level playing field that is transparent and fair and easily understood, and not one that is about political favors and so forth. And when you're talking about bringing folks in who have to deal with the government, whether it's in a permitting role or an economic development role or anything else, understanding that things will be clear and fair and so forth is actually very important to people. And in fact, that understanding of the environment that they're working in is actually probably more important than our tax policy, believe it or not, for what businesses actually think about when they're trying to decide where to locate. Most of the real drivers of those decisions are not within the control of a local government, but among the things that are, the factors around how fair and transparent the public processes are is actually more important than even tax policy, which comes as a surprise for many, I imagine. So if that's the strategy, it's you know, some of that is fairly, I guess, sort of not as tangible as some might like, but the results are extremely tangible. And over the past 5 years, this data, for the most part, comes from data that the Commonwealth collects for all communities. It's not biased data, really, in any way. We have seen a 16% increase in the number of commercial businesses in the city over the past 5 years. We have seen a 5% growth in the number of jobs in the city over the past 5 years. And most significant in this respect is that the amount of jobs in the city today is actually higher than at any point since the 1980s during the heyday of the Wang era. And that may not be something that's not a story that's well understood, but it definitely is a very positive one for the city. And there's an assumption that some make that this is all the university's growing, it must all be the university. But in fact, private employment in the city is actually up almost by the same percentage during that same period. So we're seeing that growth in the private sector as well as we're seeing it in the public sector. And the city government isn't really helping at all. I think we've actually reduced jobs since 2008. And it's also really important to notice that this is not a regional trend. The rest of the region, if you take Lowell out, has barely moved at all in terms of employment over that same period. And this is telling in two respects. First of all, I think all of that discussion earlier about the importance of urban places and that being where the economic growth is going to be, because that's where the millennial generation wants to be, this is the data that helps to bear that out. The truly suburban places are not seeing the job growth, whereas the urban places are. And bear in mind, the past 5 years has been the worst recession we've had since the 1930s, so this is not a time where there's been a whole lot of growth, period. But we've been seeing growth in Lowell, and it hasn't been happening throughout the region. And the other thing that's important to note here is that the data that gets publicized much more frequently than the data of actual employment by municipality, which is what this is, the data that gets published much more frequently is the unemployment rate. And that is a rate that's based on where people live, not where they work. And Lowell's unemployment rate is higher than any of us would like, and that's not something that we want to belittle or pass over. But in fact, the reason that Lowell's unemployment rate is as high as it is not because there are not jobs growing in the city. It's actually because most of the layoffs and most of the job reductions that have hurt Lowell residents have actually taken place in the suburbs around Lowell. And some of the communities on this list actually have seen a significant net loss of jobs during this period. And that's really the reason why we have a higher unemployment rate. Unfortunately, as a municipal government, we don't have a huge amount of control over hiring decisions even of companies that are located in Lowell, but we have zero control over the hiring decisions of companies that are not located in Lowell. And so that's something that's very difficult to control. And these aren't just service jobs. In fact, during the same period, again, throughout a recession, we've actually seen a 5% net increase in the average weekly wages that people are being paid in the city. So again, we're seeing improved jobs. We're also seeing a benefit in terms of housing prices now. This is something that's really much more recent. Only in the past year have we seen the dramatic growth. And in fact, this is only through August. If we update it to be data that's now available through the end of September, the median sale price in Lowell has actually increased to $218,000 instead of $215,000. And again, this isn't my data. This is from the Warren Group, which is sort of the main repository of, as you know, Councilor Kennedy, of housing sales information for Massachusetts, but really actually much of New England. And we're seeing a tremendous amount of development in the city as well. I think this is a story that is not unfamiliar to people. We've had a lot of institutional development in the city. We've over $600 million worth of higher education investment in the past few years, $120 million worth of medical investment and healthcare investment in the city just in the past couple of years, and more than 7,000 new students in the city over the past few years. And obviously that has a a tremendous spin-off effect for the city. But we've also seen a tremendous amount of real estate development in the city recently. We now have taken 91.5% of the mills that were vacant in the 1970s. That was over 5 million square feet. 91.5% has been redeveloped, reoccupied, and put to new uses. And I was at a meeting yesterday morning with other gateway cities, and I can tell you that that statistic is something that the other gateway cities are extremely envious of. And I've given talks across the country actually about the redevelopment of Lowell, and these statistics about the redevelopment of vacant space in the city is really not something that is common in a lot of places and really makes Lowell stand out even nationally. Just since 2000, we have had over 3 million square feet that was vacant just in the downtown that has been redeveloped and reoccupied and put to new uses. And chief among that, we've had 1,600 new market rate housing units built. Again, that's just less than 15 years. We also, and this again, something the council should appreciate and deserves credit for as well, we have the lowest taxes in the region. With one exception, Lawrence actually has slightly lower taxes than we do. But everybody, this is the Boston Globe did a study of all of the communities north of Boston. And we have the lowest taxes in our region. We have what was at the time, this was prior to the council approving a zero tax increase budget this year, but as of last fiscal year, we had the 4th lowest rate of increase in taxes of any community north of Boston. And with the decision that the council made going into this current fiscal year, I believe we are now the 2nd lowest rate of increase in taxes north of Boston over the past 5 years. And that's, again, something you all should be very proud of. We are not without challenges, of course. Obviously, we have a lot of good news, but we do have some things we do still need to work on. One challenge we still have is that as a lingering effect of the recession, some of the absorption rate for commercial office space in the city is not what we would like. I think one of the reasons that has been one of the later places to recover from the recession is that we've also experienced some structural changes in the commercial real estate market, I think, during this recession. And I think that we will likely see less office space demand and less retail demand nationally than what was the case prior to the recession as a result of some just changes in the nature of work and changes in the nature of how we shop. When you think about how much business is done over the internet, and think about the fact that the United States as a whole has 6 times the retail square footage per capita of any other country in the world, and you begin to realize that we are over-retailed, and it is very difficult in the face of the pressures of internet retail sales to see how there wouldn't be some decline in retail occupancy at all levels all across the country, which speaks to the for lease signs that the manager was having observed in another community. And if you look carefully when you go to the shopping malls, you'll realize they do a really good job of hiding the vacant storefronts in the malls, but there are a lot of vacant stores in most of the malls around here, and it's a trend everywhere. I think we also have a situation where while we do see obviously significant increases in employment in the city, we are not seeing that is not being felt by all equally in the city. And the unemployment rates for some of the folks in some of our immigrant neighborhoods and some of our folks with less education are higher than they are for the folks who are maybe better off economically or better educated. And we're actually working on a project. We've submitted a proposal to the Federal Reserve Bank's Working Cities Challenge, which is aimed at tackling this very disparity. The hope is if we are funded for that proposal, we will have about $700,000 to use to help to boost the rate and create a kind of supportive environment for boosting the rate of immigrant entrepreneurship in the city and enabling the people who need the employment opportunities the most to actually grow their own employment opportunities. And we're very excited about that. Hopefully we we won't be hearing, they've announced that their announcement of the winners of that contest will be in January, so hopefully we will be one of the winners. I think we're pretty well positioned. And as I mentioned before, we also do have some prominent retail spaces in the downtown that are still vacant, and we are working closely with the owners of those spaces to try to help them identify tenants and also to encourage them to be as welcoming of potential tenants as they can be. And there is some movement on a couple of the most prominent spaces in the downtown that hopefully will yield some results. But obviously, ultimately, it's up to the landlords whether they will execute leases with folks or not. And again, this is really a symptom of a much larger problem that is very definitely not Lowell specific, but obviously something we want to continue to work on. And the other really key thing to work on that problem is market building. And that's one of the things that we are working very hard at, which is trying to continue to find ways to bring residents and bring businesses that are more sort of create the daytime workers, particularly into the downtown area. And that's really what the Hamilton Canal District is all about, and that's what some of the other visions that were in the Downtown Evolution Plan for development around the Songus Center area and some other underdeveloped portions of Lowell. And we're trying to create opportunities, and we are working all the time with real estate developers trying to get them to create those opportunities, because the more population we can bring into the downtown, the more likely that we will have the kind of environment where retailers can survive and thrive. The other thing we are doing to help address the issue of the downtown environment in terms of retail, but in more broadly, is to the restoration of two-way traffic in the downtown. This was also a recommendation of the Downtown Evolution Plan, and we have consulting firms, Nelson Nygaard and TEC, are in the process of designing the restoration of two-way traffic. We will hopefully be bidding that this winter, and construction would begin in the spring, late spring probably, with an eye on having the conversion take place next summer while the three main drivers of educational traffic, the university, the community college, and the high school, are all out of session, so that people can have a little bit of time to get used to the new traffic pattern before we have the full traffic volumes in the city or in the downtown from that. There has been a pretty extensive set of experiences that other communities have had when they have restored two-way traffic to downtown streets that were converted to one-way in the 50s and 60s. I have yet to come across a community that was not pleased with the results from a traffic point of view, but more importantly, from an economic development point of view. That some cities, and most prominent among them, places like Vancouver, Washington, have reported just tremendous increases in the viability of retail space and in economic development. Driven by having people be able to access the facility, their properties more easily, and having a much better sort of wayfinding and reducing unnecessary turns, and also doubling the number of opportunities for people to pass by and view storefronts in particular is really important to making storefronts more viable and stronger. So we are very much looking forward to this having economic development benefits, and I think importantly our traffic engineers have also shown that we will actually see some traffic benefits. That was a bit of a surprise to me, but I'm glad to see it. And this is just a slide that illustrates what the two-way traffic restoration on Market Street will give you a sense of how different the street will feel when two-way traffic is restored there. And that is essentially a summary of where we are with economic development. We'd also like to show, we have a couple of marketing videos that we have put together that are really testimonials in their own words from businesses here in Lowell, talking about what their experience here in Lowell has been.
I'm John Dearden. I'm chairman and CEO of Zenith. Zenith designs and manufactures advanced football helmets. Anyone that plays football will use the helmet, right from Pop Warner, varsity level, college level, all the way up to pro players in the NFL. Compared with existing helmets in the marketplace, which tend to rely essentially on layers of foam, we developed a unique and advanced technology designed to minimize the impact of concussion and to provide a much higher level of protection. The product is designed here in Lowell. The company has been in existence now for 8 years. We're probably number 3 in the football market in the United States, which frankly, for a small company like us, has been a remarkable achievement. Everything is assembled here. We employ at our peak about 60 people, all drawn locally. We find that the workforce excellent, very motivated and smart. Lowell provides an outstanding base for us in terms of ease of access and a general buzz associated with being part of the redevelopment of an older city. We looked at many different sites, but I think we wanted somewhere that was a bit edgy, a bit cool, where young people can afford to live, for example, which is a major advantage in terms of attracting young talent. And I think being installed in an old mill, which I like the kind of juxtaposition of early industrial revolution, the growth of American industry, bringing in new technology into this environment. It's been a great place for us to manufacture helmets. We really like doing business in Lowell.
My name is Sambat Niang. I opened Simply Khmer in 2008. I'm a chef, also a co-owner with my wife.
I'm Denise Ban. I'm a co-owner of Simply Khmer. The restaurant is located in Lowell, Massachusetts.
The style of cooking is very authentic Cambodian food that I remember from my country. I see the older people, younger people, Spanish, African, pretty much everybody.
I find out that a lot of American, different ethnic group traveled to Cambodia and came back and told us wow, the flavor is amazing because what they had in Cambodia is like what they had here.
If you come to my restaurant, if it's put a little sign, say pepper on it, just make sure you can handle the spices. If it's spicy, it has to be spicy.
I grew up in Lowell, met my husband here.
I came to Lowell back in '85. Back then, it's not a lot.
Each year, each time I turn around, things has changed in Lowell.
Now, it's big difference.
The downtown is looking really nice.
They have a soccer arena going on. They have the Spindler baseball field. And now, UMass. That's a big thing. I feel Lowell did a good job, a really good job. Especially now, the city of Lowell, they make us a Cambodian town.
There's Chinatown, there's Little Italy, there's places that you go, you see, and then finally there's Cambodian town, which makes me very happy. And to have a business here makes me even happier.
Every business is different. The most important thing is if you have an idea, a good product, just bring to Lowell because Lowell have a lot of opportunity. That's all I can say.
We have one more of these just to sort of show the diversity of the
My
types of
name is Joe
businesses.
Jolly.
Here.
I'm the owner of the Plenus Group. We're a food manufacturing company that specializes in soups and sauces and prepared frozen foods. And we're from Lowell, Massachusetts. We make everything from lobster bisque, black bean soup, cream of broccoli. We're famous for our chowder. We have won the Chowder Fest numerous times. Some of our customers are supermarkets, restaurants, so we have a very good distribution throughout the East Coast. The process that we use for making soup, we still do a lot of the processing by hand. We're very focused on the quality and the taste of the food. The taste is first. Being in Lowell has provided us with a very tremendous local and very loyal workforce. It's a very livable city, so my employees can maintain a reasonable lifestyle here. If you're a business person, why do you want to be in Lowell? It's great in terms of its geographic location. You really have access to all of New England here from Lowell. In addition to that, the city has great resources, and they really do get out to the business community and make those services available. Economic development incentives, or even just accessing people that are talking about business and just networking. The other thing that is great about Lowell, the cost of doing business here is reasonable, and obviously that's a tremendous benefit. I've lived in Lowell for 20 years. My sister and I have owned the business here in Lowell now 13 years. I think that Lowell is representative of really what the future of an American city is. I mean, I really don't want to go anywhere else.
And that completes our report and our presentation. I think certainly the numbers and the information speaks for itself, and hopefully those last three videos give you some sense of what we're doing in terms of continuing to push the product that is Lowell, but also gives you some testimonials from three of the businesses that we've been working very closely with, and we have a number of others in the queue that speak very highly of the city of Lowell and the opportunities that exist here.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions or comments from members of the subcommittee? Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you. And I know we just have a few minutes, so I'll just try to take two or three. And I don't know if you'll know the answers to these questions, but one of the buildings featured in the slideshow in the presentation was the Rialto building. What's the timeline on that?
My understanding is total timeline is about 3 years out between the Middlesex, of course, has had it for about 2 or 3 years now. They received it from the Park Service. The delegation was recently able to get the necessary funds approved. The Middlesex was seeking. They're in the middle of doing the design work now. Then that will go to bidding and construction, and my understanding is it's somewhere in the vicinity of about 3 years out.
Okay. In the old, on Merrimack Street near John, the old UNB building, do we know what's going on with that building? That was transferred maybe within the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. And has the city been in touch with them, or do we have any idea of what their intent is?
It was actually purchased by an individual who was basically viewing it as an investment property, and we had some unfortunate contact with them when we explained to them that they were doing work without permits. So our inspectors worked with them a little bit on that, and they have not continued the work that they started without permits, so we're not exactly sure what their intent is going forward.
Okay, so do we not have a relationship with them right now? Communication with them right now?
There's not an active communication with them at the moment. We're sort of waiting, at this point, waiting for them to give us a sense of what their plans are now.
Okay, and the storefronts that you mentioned that were vacant, that you said we were working with the landlords, one of those would be where the bookstore was, and the other one would be in the old Cherry and Webb building, I guess, where the dress shop was.
Those are a couple of the prominent ones, yeah.
What do we do to assist them, or what are we doing to try to fill up those storefronts?
Well, I can actually, probably that's something that might be best for Teresa Park to talk to you about. She could describe the process that her team uses with those and with other property owners and business prospects in terms of trying to make those matches and help people.
Should I use this one here? Is this on?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Typically what we do is we work directly with the property owner to identify prospective businesses in a few different ways.
But what are we doing with these two particular ones? Not what we do typically.
Well,
I mean, what are we doing?
We do speak with the property owner. We have offered to assist him with specific types of businesses that he might find attractive for those locations, as well as the types of businesses that we think would be a good mix to the existing retail mix in the downtown. We have offered to we have offered to identify and outreach to those specific businesses as he comes across them. So that's some of it. We also have worked with businesses that are looking for space that would be suitable for those locations as well. So we will be in touch with him to connect the prospective business with the property owner.
Okay. So would I be correct in thinking that probably within the next month or two, we don't have a tenant for them, or we, right now, right?
That's correct.
Okay. The last two questions that I have are just, I mean, I could have a whole bunch of questions, but in the interest of time, do we know what, off the top of your head, do you know what the aggregate acreage is of the jam area and the aggregate assessed value of the jam area?
The aggregate acreage is about 45 acres. The aggregate assessed value, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I think we did present not too long ago to the council the increase in tax revenues that's coming as a result of the jam plan that's coming, the actions of the jam plan in that area. But I don't recall off the top of my head what that number specifically was either.
Okay, but you said 45 acres?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And then, but within that, the Hamilton Canal District is a smaller district, right?
Yes.
Of
Yeah.
what, 20 or so?
Yeah, depending what you count and what you don't count, it's either 15 to 20. It's, if you count both the courthouse site and the national park parking lots, it ends up being about 20.
All right.
If I could just, so when the jam area, you're counting, in that 45 acres, you're counting the Hamilton Canal District as well?
Yeah, the Hamilton Canal is a part of the jam plan.
Yes.
It's not the whole jam plan. but-
Okay, well, all right, so if you take the Hamilton Canal District away from the rest of the jam, what's left?
It's about 25 acres.
25, okay.
And I thought we had some report previously about the assessments have already exceeded what happened, what was assessed at the time the plan was announced. Is that?
Well, the Hamilton Canal alone, the city is actually receiving or collecting over $100,000 more annually in taxes from the Hamilton Canal District than we were collecting from that same real estate before we started the project. And that's particularly interesting because we only owned one relatively small parcel in the Hamilton Canal District before we started, and the city actually holds the title to a sizable amount of it today still. But just the two development projects that have happened already result in over 100,000 more net increase in property taxes annually than what was the case before we started the project.
That's with converting a lot of that property from the commercial industrial rate to a residential rate, right?
That's actual dollars. That's nothing to do with the rates. That's the actual dollars we are collecting. Yeah.
Right. But we're only able to tax a portion of that property at the residential rate.
Yeah, right now we have one sizable completed project that's taxed at the residential rate, and we have another project that's taxed at the commercial rate in that area. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions from members of the subcommittee or the council? Councilor Mendoza?
It's interesting that 91.5% of our mill space has already been renovated and redeveloped. I'm just wondering if you could speak to, if you see in the future, is there any other category or classification of property that would have that kind of bulk for redevelopment? Is there any opportunity like that?
Well, I think the next wave of real estate development for downtown Lowell, but Lowell in general, is going to be new construction. We have 91.5% of the mills done now, and there's probably credible developers and real projects attached to another about 3.5%. So we're going to be pretty close to done with the mills within a few years. But what we have as the next big kind of opportunity in downtown Lowell is opportunities for new construction. And I think that one of the things that the Hamilton Canal District obviously is chief among that, but also the evolution plan identified a number of locations in and around the downtown where there is opportunity for pretty significant new construction development. And there are some real challenges with new construction. One of the One of the fundamental challenges we have with any real estate development in the downtown, or in a lot of Lowell, is that the cost of doing the development exceeds the financeable, or the financeable cost of doing the development exceeds the returns that you can expect from sales and rentals in many cases. So you have to find a way to close that gap. And the most valuable tool for doing that in many of the projects has been the ability to use historic rehabilitation tax credits, which have helped make those mills possible, a lot of those mill projects possible. Those tax credits are not available when you're talking about new construction. So the challenges associated with new construction being the next wave of downtown development are going to require a different set of tools to try to overcome them. And we're working with a number of folks from some of the other gateway cities, as well as the legislature, to try to encourage the development of a new set of financing tools at the state level that can help support what we're calling transformative redevelopment projects in the gateway cities. And if we can, and Senator Donahue in particular has been a real champion, and all three of our state reps have also signed on as co-sponsors of that bill. And if we can get that bill or anything like it through the legislature, it will provide the comparable tool that will enable us to take on some of these new construction projects to a degree that's somewhat similar to what we've been able to do with some of the mill properties going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Adam Bakey. I want to thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. I did miss it at the Lowell Plan breakfast, so I'm glad that it was brought up to see all the development that has taken place. I'm not surprised. We know that the planning department works tremendously hard, especially Teresa Park, who does a tremendous job and remains in the background very quietly while she does all and transforms all the businesses, as we are going to meet a guy that is coming in here, recognizing Herman Kabikoff, CFO of Cortron. I would have asked you to explain that a little bit, but we can't for time. But these are the silent things that are taking place, and we have to promote that. We have to make this council look good. So you do all the work, I take all the credit. This is what, God bless America, right? So I just want to say that if you could get us a printout of what we just saw here, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's going to have to be the last word. So entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Leahy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.